So, last week we talked at a length about some of the primary characteristics of Celtic life and faith. And you might remember those I'll just repeat them very quickly so that I want to ask if anybody has had any additional experience with these maybe during the week, or you thought about it, or something came to you and you'd like to share that. I'd be perfectly happy for you to do that. We talked about the body and soul issue. That is, for Celts, the body is in the soul of the universe and not the being in the soul of the person. That love is the nature of soul, agape love specifically, which is to hold out the best life possible for every other person. Worship is primarily listening. There are places in the world where God's presence is experienced by many, and those are called thin places. If you are a Celt, you want to have a soul friend, one that you can share any details of your life with. Contradictions are treasures. Contradictions are treasures. So when you balance the life with life, those are non-political, of course, but they are considered to be treasures when you have that kind of relationship where you can share with other people. And then women and men are equal, and the one that keeps coming back is that the Celts built monasteries, but not churches, because they were essentially nomads. So, anybody thought anything more about that, or have a comment to make on any of those that we talked about last week? Okay, so back about 1997 through 91 through 90, 2000, something like that, there was a renaissance of interest in Celtic spirituality in the United States and in many places in the world. I don't know, I think we bought 9 books, Sally and I, and 6 CDs, and a lot of those kind of sit-around trinkets, you know, that you have in your house, and 1 blanket. And they were all Celtic stuff, and it was at that time when it was kind of, you know, exciting to have that going on, and then for some reason it just quit. What happened to it? That's one of the questions that keeps coming back to me. And in one of the books we bought, I found this cover a little bit askew, and I was looking through them last week, and I found an article. It's actually a piece of news from Scripps Howard News Service by Terry Mattingly. And I don't know when this was written. There's no date on it, but it was during that period of time when there was interest in the Celtic experience. And I'd like to share a little bit about this with you. And Mattingly said, "It happens every year in the weeks just before St. Patrick's Day. Without fail, publishers would start putting out the same drivel. You'd see books of Irish blessings and Irish stories and Irish saints and Irish whatever, and everything would be green. The covers, the printing, everything green." Catholic writer Thomas Cahill, author of the 1995 best-selling book, How the Irish Saved Civilization. But it's getting harder to spot this annual surge. Somewhere along the way, the tartan tide washed in and never receded. These days, the Celts are on the march year-round. There is more to this than St. Patrick's Day parades, a giant legacy of literature, tenor singing, and people making the crying in their ale. For things Celtic, this is a new age. Most visit music stores, and instead of a few offerings of chieftains, shoppers will fill their racks with new Celtic music, from ethereal lullabies to foot-stomping reels. There has been a similar surge of interest in Celtic history, fiction, art, and spirituality. The latter can appeal to everyone, from those seeking non-pagan mysticism to Christian pilgrims searching for the roots in the bloody soil of Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Cornwall, Brittany, and the Isle of Man. Some people become interested in Celtic spirituality because they want to reject what they perceive is traditional Christianity. One reason Celtic spirituality is so attractive is that it's foreign, but not too foreign. It's familiar, but not too familiar. It's Western, but there is this sense of Eastern to it too. The Celtic Church offered a Christianity that was whole and undivided. It came before the division of East and West, let alone the division between Protestants and Catholics. But there's a problem. Today, 1991 or 97, Celtic Christianity is quite literally in ruins. It's hard to join a church that can best be seen in the fallen remnants of the ancient abbeys and in priceless handwritten manuscripts on museum shelves. Interest in Celtic Christianity may be on the rise, but modern seekers won't be able to find congregations bearing that label in the phone book. The Church of Rome gained control over England during the Norman conquest of 1066, soon after the bitter 1054 division of Christianity into Catholic West and Orthodox East. And then the Church of England successfully broke with Rome in 1533, yet Anglicanism and its children were born out of a compromise between Rome and those who were protesting the teachings of Rome. Instead of returning to Celtic traditions, Anglicanism blended many of Rome's structures with its innovations and surging Protestants, and Celtic Christianity remained buried in the rubble left by invaders and reformers. The Celtic Church was suppressed, and finally it was left crushed. That's part of the whole appeal, he says, of this Catholic influence in the early 70s, in the early 90s. Celtic Christianity is like a fly caught in amber. It's frozen in time. It died before it could mutate into something else. And this is why so many people yearn for it. It's also why the rootedness is so Americans feel. So, this leaves us wondering, why didn't Celtic spirituality catch on? Well, it doesn't seem like it's coming back in any time soon. In fact, it just kind of disappeared. It just disappeared from the interest of American citizens and others. So, you can't find the Celtic Church. You can go on the web and ask about Celts, and you find maybe 3 listings. And it just kind of evaporated because it didn't have the depth of important links to keep people going. It was like just like a flaky kind of airborne piece. But maybe something has touched you from this, and if you have liked to continue with with anything Celtic, that's okay, because you can still do that if you want to. It's not cutting and doing anything, any damage to your spirituality in the Christian sense. It's still there. Two books that I find the best of my 9 are this one called Anam Cara, by the Book of Celtic Wisdom by John O'Donoghue. Anam Cara is soul friend, that's what the word means. And this little one called A Celtic Spirituality by J. Philip Newell. If you'd like to take a peek at each, you're welcome to do that. And I need to do more than this. I need to push us a little bit in a more contemporary direction. So I'm going to leave the Celts for a minute and go somewhere else. It begins with the news last week that the mainline church in the United States has bottomed out. Did you see that? We have stopped losing members. I hope that means that the church of the future is ready to grow up and to a place where God is truly a God for all and to all. Phyllis Lar last couple maybe a year ago, I caught her in the hall out here, and she gave me a book. She says, you need to read this, and so I did. And it's a book by Brian McLaren. He puts the emphasis upon contemporary Christianity this way. Speaking personally, he says, I believe that God is love, and that love never wills harm or damage. Does that sound familiar? I've had to put the genocide card from my spiritual wallet and cut it in pieces. I've done the same with my collection of prejudice cards, favoritism cards, and other trump cards not related to the president. My sense of privilege and entitlement has been fully discredited, and I've been left, as Paul said, with a huge debt, a joyful debt, perpetual debt of love for all. All. We are in this present moment, and the very exclusive we survival strategy that brought us to this point now threatens us. We have developed weapons of mass destruction so terrifying that if they were fully deployed in the name of any God 4.0, there would be no winners. Every we would be decimated. In addition, all the we's on earth now face problems so immense, beginning with the climate crisis, extending to many other ecological, economic, and political challenges that no single exclusive we can solve them alone. We are the very exclusive we strategy that has served so well for 130,000 years is now run its course. Our time-tested divine survival strategy has become suicidal strategy. For the first time in human history, God 4.0, the exclusive we God, who is the God of us but not them, threatens our survival. Here's how Catholic theologian James Finley put it. It happens that religions, and perhaps even humanity itself, will not survive if we stay within the tribal consciousness, believing our religion is the only one true religion. We need God 5.0 to emerge, a God of inclusive we, the God who is not just of us, but all of us, bigger, non-dualistic God can unite us and them in an inclusive identity that is not limited to tribe or nation, but that extends to all humanity, not just to all living, and not just to humanity, but to all living things, and not just to living things, but to all planetary ecosystems in which we share. We need to migrate to a grown-up God, as my friend Jacqueline Lewis put it. We need God 5.0 to lead us away from the precipice of cataclysmic war. We need God 5.0 to save us from paralyzing polarization. We need God 5.0 to teach us wisely. We need God 5.0 to now realize that we have evolved together with all other forms of life on this tiny, fragile planet, which means that creatures are our relatives and our relations. We are all part of one family tree, one web of life, and we need to understand God to embrace all of that reality itself. I don't know what you think about that. I find it a challenge, an opportunity as much as a challenge. I'm convinced of our faith that we need to have a church to survive. We need to have a church, a building for Christianity to survive. And it may look different from what it looks now, but its future hope is within our grasp. Think about it. That kind of time in history which requires us to seize the moment and welcome all, not just our friends, the people who meet certain criteria, people who are aligned with certain kinds of gods, but all into the human family, and find a way for us to get along differently. And it's very important. It's very important at this time, particular in history. So think about it. Well, yes.
What you said, I think growing faith has to come these next weeks will be prepared. What we're talking about is what he's going to be working with, what shape will growing faith take is our congregation to use. So it's so hard to do it himself.
Excuse me, where people take relations seriously. We don't run over our friends, and we don't try to shake everybody into believing things that are just like we believe. So I'm glad to hear that. I think that's right on target. And yes. That's that's true. Yeah, good point. N.T. Wright, who's an Anglican bishop, good writer, says that in the Bible, the good news at its heart is about the rescue and renewal of the whole of creation. Jesus will transform the whole world with his justice, his joy, and his love. This is loving community, and we have the opportunity to turn things even more joyful and to become more inclusive and to welcome as best we can everybody we know and see to be a part of some place that takes God 5.0 seriously. And so back to the first question. I don't think you spread your own or define your own spirituality. I think you need the church. I think you need the church. Yeah. There have been, the participation in life of the church has fallen off dramatically, and it is, and among mainline Christians, that has stopped, or at least fallen rapidly. So it's still going on in other denominations. Conservative denominations are taking an enormous hit. That's also true of Southern. That's true particularly of Southern Baptists. So it's an opportunity to include them, even though they probably wouldn't want to include us. Good. Well, hey, thanks for listening, and I'm sorry about large numbers of readings, but they just say it better than I can, so I appreciate your putting up with that, yes. Yes. The Celts? They're so fluid because they are so um, they traveled around and moved around that they'd stop. They build monasteries and build these places that were places where you could go for holy experiences, but there is so much turmoil in what we know about those early times that we don't have an answer for your question. Right. Right. Well, the argument gets back to that thing about treasures being held by opposing views, and so that would add to that, sound like that same kind of an intention, I think. If you oppose another person, that is better than being all alike. But it does not apply to things that are political. If for following Jesus. So, so those things you don't deal with. You just stay away from that, like Jesus did. My quote was, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites." Remember that? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes. Oh, that was just, he was using that as a gimmick to talk about the difference, just because it's kind of computer language. Yeah, writing programs and so forth, yeah. Great, well, I thank you for coming, and God bless us all, and God bless those that we deal with every day in our lives, and hope we can spread a little extra love and peace and understanding among them, because lots of folks need it.